Hello everybody, it's Michael Hollands once again for Sound of the Movies. Today I have the pleasure to once again be joined by Harry Gregson-Williams. On this episode, we will focus on his score for Mulan, Disney's most recent live-action adaptation. Welcome back, Harry.
Hi, good. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you back on my show. Thank you very much for taking the time to chat. And Harry, Mulan is the latest picture of the Disney live-action adaptation of their classics, so to speak, and fans are very excited yet about the film and of course your score. You had worked with director Niki Caro before on The Zookeeper's Wife, and when did you learn she was going to direct the film?
Oh, probably 2 or 3 years ago. We had finished Zookeeper's Wife, I don't know, a year or two before, and one day I saw Niki's picture on the front, a smiling face on the front of one of the trade newspapers here in Los Angeles, saying that she'd been selected to direct Mulan. And I thought to myself, oh God, I hope that she asks me. And later that day, the phone went, and there she was. She was saying, "Listen, you've got to come along on the ride." So yeah, I was very fortunate to get the gig. Yeah, I mean, this business is all about relationships, and we formed a good relationship on The Zookeeper's Wife. Not many people saw that movie, but she directed it beautifully, and we had a good experience on it. So asking me to do Milan was a good progression. But it's been quite a long trip. I mean, I started work shortly after she came back from shooting. In fact, I had to do some. There's a scene in the movie where Mulan is part of the Emperor's army at that moment, and the forces are gathering on a hilltop, and Bori Khan's forces are gathering on the opposite hilltop, and there's some big taikos, what they look like taikos, ancient Chinese drums that are actually on screen that are playing away to let the soldiers know at what point they're supposed to raise their bow and arrows, at what point they're supposed to release their arrows. So I had to do a little bit of pre-production on that, send her some drum patterns that her actors could act to. I started, I suppose you could say I started before she'd even finished shooting, but certainly when Niki got back from shooting and started post-production, it was in the late summer of 2018. Yeah, and I've only just finished the movie, so it's one of the longest post-production schedules that I've been on, and yeah, we needed the time. You know, that Hans Zimmer always used to say to me, you know, when things got agonizingly drawn out, and I would show up in the studio looking more tired and more tired, he's like, Harry, if they want to give us more time, we got to use it. Yeah, more time equals better score. So I kept that in the back of my mind because it was quite a grueling process, only because, not for any other reason than, it was a big film, and they did do some additional photography about a year into post-production, which changed a lot of things. Changed a lot of the nuances of how the movie was going to be presented, and therefore I had to change course quite drastically with some of the music that I was writing, which to begin with hadn't been too action orientated, but the film sort of transformed into more of an action epic adventure as we got closer to finding what the movie really was. We recorded the first batch of orchestral recordings in September 2019, and then some more in December 2019, then some more in January. But you know, that's the luxury of working on a big movie like this. The studio had the budget and resources to be able to, you know, let us experiment with what we wanted to do. I did a bunch of recording remotely with musicians from China, and with a bunch of musicians, featured musicians here in LA of Chinese origin. So yeah, the canvas was wide open. There was plenty of time. So basically, I've got no excuses. Not that I would want any, but it should be a banging score. It's got no reason not to be.
Right. And Harry, the recording sessions took place in Los Angeles this time. And if I'm not mistaken, you recorded for 8 or 9 days.
I had a full orchestra, and on occasions we recorded a section separately. But yeah, basically it's a full orchestral recording, a big choir, big orchestra, and a lot of recording with individual Chinese instruments, such as erhu, which is very featured, and that timbre and that theme was very important, and I hooked to the character of the witch in the movie, which came as a bit of a surprise for me because I'd been writing a lot of music, not necessarily hooked to individual moments in the movie. Early on when I started, trying to find my way, trying to find the textures and timbres that would work for the movie, and not necessarily writing a piece saying, this is Mulan's theme, this is the witch's theme, this is Bori Khan's theme, but just experimenting with the new sounds. I mean, I'm not Chinese. I had to have time to be able to experiment with some of these instruments and the instrumentalists. It's no good me writing something, it'd be rather like someone writing something for, I don't know, an orchestral flute. It turning out that wasn't in the range of the flute, and that wasn't how a flute can behave. I do have that knowledge when it comes to an orchestral flute. Do I have that knowledge for the erhu? Well, I do now. Did I? Absolutely not. I mean, I knew the sound of it. I'd never written for it. So this was new territory. So I needed time to be able to throw things against the wall and see how well they stuck, and also to see how Niki Caro would feel about them. So having experimented with the erhu, for instance, the piece that I wrote was quite plaintive and in a way quite full of emotion. And it was Niki's idea to hook that to the witch. Now, I had thought that I'd probably write something a bit more sinister, and but she really felt that we would go deeper if we had something more beguiling, more mysterious, and quite emotional. Because when one comes down to it, in the movie that Niki made, this character, which is a new character to the Mulan story, the witch, didn't appear in the original movie. The witch is quite like Mulan in a way. They share a lot of similarities because they're both kind of outsiders. They've both got something to hide, and they're both misunderstood by people around them. So the relationship between Mulan and the witch actually was a really interesting one to write for. It was almost some sort of an attraction between the two, and not anything particularly aggressive. They do fight at a couple of points in the movie. One point in particular, a fight that Mulan doesn't win, but mostly there's a certain understanding between the two of them. They're both kind of outsiders, and they're not unlike each other. So yeah, the erhu became representative of the witch and all that she represented, and that was fun.
Great. And Harry, which scene or which scenes would you describe as most impressive? Be it a battle sequence or maybe a dialogue?
The first really big action moment I wrote originally appeared about 20 minutes in the film. The filmmakers experimented with moving that scene, which was an attack on a garrison by Bori Khan and some horsemen, which is really cool visuals. One of the first cuts of the movie I had, that appeared about 20 minutes into the film. And we actually experimented with opening the film with that. And then eventually was about 5 or 10 minutes into the film. So it was kind of between the two. So that was the first sort of action scene that I decided to have a go at. Because what I could do there was I could write a theme for Bori Khan. Mulan doesn't actually feature in that scene. And I had already written Mulan's theme, which Niki had liked. So as an action scene, it was great fun. Lots of drums, some ethnic woodwind instruments that give you the sense that they're not purely Chinese. I mean, Bori Khan is an invader from the north, as it were, and there was a slight sense of it being more Arabic, Middle Eastern, something like that. So that was fun to experiment with.
Many people are inspired by, screenplay or characters or even the cinematography of one project.
Yeah.
What happened on Mulan, or what inspired you?
What was really inspiring from the very first cut of the movie I saw, which was, let's face it, it was before the director's cut. So the film was probably an hour longer than it ended up. A lot of the scenes that were in that first version of the film that I saw had to be cut. and this isn't unusual. It was many a film, an early cut that I've seen of a film barely represents the final thing. You know, if you think about it, the director goes away and shoots all these, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of feet of film, and comes back and yeah, some of it just can't make it into the film, but that's part of the post-production process is whittling it down, is finding the movie. So in one of the first assemblies of the film that I saw, there was a lot more emphasis on the younger Mulan, which is the Mulan that we meet at the beginning of the film. And it was decided that we didn't need to stay with that young Mulan. We could jump to the teenage Mulan a bit quicker. And that's the Mulan that we stay with throughout the movie. But the little actress who plays the younger Mulan is absolutely adorable. And it was I think, with great regret that Niki had to cut down some of those scenes. We meet the young Mulan right at the beginning of the movie, being kind of naughty, mischievous, running around chasing a chicken, and ending up on top of a roof while she's chasing a chicken and performing some strangely bold move, getting off the roof. Now, all the villagers below see her do this, including her father, who's rather proud because he knows that she has a certain chi, as they say. There's a certain ability, not a superhero ability, not talking superhero, but a certain way with being able to defend herself and being able to get out of tricky situations, some physical abilities. And she jumps down from the roof in quite an unlikely way for an 8-year-old kid. And the villagers all think, this is not what a girl should be doing. This kind of puts her in disgrace. But her father secretly smiles and thinks, well, yeah, that's my girl. But that doesn't last because he's very upset by the fact that she decides she disappears one night with his sword and in his armor. As you know, the story is that she disguises herself and goes to fight with a bunch of boys to try and bring honor to her family. The film was really inspiring to work on from many points of view, but it's beautifully shot. And Yifei, the actress, is the actress who plays the older Mulan, is quite extraordinary. She's really effervescent. She shines off the screen, and she's in almost every scene and seems to perform a lot of her own jumping about stunts. She's really extraordinary, and I had the pleasure of meeting her and actually recording with her. She came and sang a couple of versions of the song from the original movie, Reflection. She sang it in Mandarin and she sang it in English. But she's an extraordinary girl. I couldn't believe she was the age she is. In the movie, she looks like she must be what the character is, 16, 15, 16, something. But no, she's grown up. She's very much grown up. But well, wouldn't mind some of her. You must have some secret of youth.
I'm sure she does. She must have one. Harry, many people always talk about the magic of movies and the magic of movie scores. When did the magic happen on the Mulan scoring process for you personally? Which moments make you say, this is what it's all about, this is what our profession is all about, and I'm just so lucky to contribute music to this marvelous industry?
A couple of moments spring to mind. So, as you know, Michael, that the composing process is quite a lonely, scary process. There's quite a lot of time spent in a room alone, trying to come up with ideas that one feels are gonna work. Now, once I came across a potential Mulan theme, which I wrote and is heard throughout the movie, but in different guises. But I was really happy once I come across that because Niki Caro was visiting my studio that day, I think, and I sat down at the piano and played it for her, and I could see by the smile on her face that she was right behind it and really got it. So the next really exhilarating moment is if one follows that line through, is using my sequencer to mock up a demo of a moment in the film. Like, for instance, when Mulan wakes up in a canyon after she's left home. She's just with her horse, she thinks, and she wakes up having slept the night. And the phoenix, who her kind of ancestral guide, has been following her and shows her the way. and the music can really, really blossom. There's no dialogue there. There's Mulan's alone. So the music was able to blossom there, and obviously that was the place to use Mulan's theme. And it was one of the first cues that I wrote, and everything seemed to come together. If you follow that line through, that was just me in my studio putting a demo together. Niki came to hear it, absolutely loved it. Well, this was, I don't know, a year ago or something. So there's much, much water under the bridge. But if you follow that line through until the orchestral recordings, standing up in front of the orchestra, putting up that piece of music, Mulan in the Canyon, and off we go. Yeah, that's certainly that'll be one of many moments. You got to pinch yourself and think, wow, this is a very fortunate position to be in.
And Harry, a director-composer relationship is so important, and it is, of course, music is intrinsic to the filmmaking process. And have there been any moments when you were actually relying on Niki Caro's input or on her feedback, or moments when she knew just to leave you alone, as she entirely trusts your judgment, as she knew you would get it right anyway?
Well, no, I don't. I think that's a long stretch. I mean, I think obviously, we've got a good relationship, and what I'm sure always she would hope that I would get it right anyway. But she, that's not really a collaboration. Isn't letting someone alone all the time, nor is it smothering their creative process. But she happily was somewhere way in between. I needed her to show up, and often the temptation, my studio's in Santa Monica, and her cutting room's at Disney over in Studio City. So we're not that close, we're not that far away, but 45 minutes in a car. But, she's getting on with cutting her film and finding her film. And I'm doing the same thing with the score in my studio. The temptation sometimes is to fly under the radar for a couple of weeks and not call for meetings because perhaps you haven't found what you've wanted. But I think I've always been more of a believer in a regular meeting with the director, so that she or he can really feel like you're attempting to collaborate. You're opening your door to them, and she was right behind me, and she wasn't difficult to get a hold of. If I would call her and say, "Look, Niki, I think I've got something really cool for Boricam. Can you come down?" She'd fly across Los Angeles. She'd be over. But as I say, we had a long time to develop this score. So it wasn't necessary for us to meet every other day. But even though, 18 months, 19 months of working on the film continually, even despite that, heck, it was quite a scramble at the end. It's always quite a scramble at the end. Somehow. Why, I don't know. But that just seems to be the way that it goes. But that's part of the fun.
And Harry, up front, I was lucky enough to be able to listen to about 30 minutes of your score. And it feels very orchestral, ethnic, great synth elements in there. And I'm sure many fans expect some kind of, in terms of scope, Kingdom of Heaven, Chronicles of Narnia, or even, Sinbad. How would you describe the score in terms of scope and thematic material?
You just said that you listened to it, and I want to know what you think. Sorry? So do you think I nailed it or no?
I think you did. I think it sounds fabulous. I mean, the cues were very good. Great sound, nice orchestra, great string elements, and I really liked it a lot. And those 30 minutes made me crave for more, and I cannot wait to watch the final film.
Yeah, well, the film it's pretty thrilling, and I think Niki did an incredibly good, amazing job with it. And it can't be easy making a movie with such a huge budget at a major studio. I mean, don't Disney own the world right now? This is an important film for them. I can't think of too many films that a big studio have made where all the actors clearly in this movie are Chinese or of Chinese descent. They don't come from Chicago or New York, that's for sure. A lot of the fans of the original movie, I think, will find that there's plenty in this that's different enough to make it a really great experience. Whilst there are definitely a couple of moments where you're put in mind of the first movie in a good way, in a sort of way of, lovely, I remember that moment. But I think that's what she worked really hard to achieve. And in my view, she really did achieve that.
Lots of today's action or action adventure scores have a very percussive drive to them, a lack of thematic material oftentimes, and cues also get chopped up. What's an important criteria for you when it comes to writing for a picture? I mean, I know you're a great thematic writer.
I mean, I could only imagine that they hired me because they wanted me to do my thing. Now, my thing is, a lot of the temp music was Narnia, Kingdom of Heaven. That was the direction they wanted to go. Not at all, thematically or anything like that, but or actually sonically, but more the scope of the thing. So I didn't feel tied to anything at all. Clearly, it was going to be an orchestral, organic score. Look, the thing is set in ancient China, for crying out loud. Are there some synth elements? Yeah, very discrete synth elements, but they're certainly not in the foreground. There's plenty of Chinese-based ethnic instruments, and there's the full-bodied orchestra that you'd expect to back it all up.
How much music did you end up recording for the picture?
I don't know, 100 minutes or something. Much more than than actually went into the film. Not for any sinister reason, but I had written so much music over the course of 18 months that I thought it was rude not to record a lot of it, even though some of it wasn't in the film anymore. But I ended up writing variations of things. So, for instance, there's a really fun chicken chase at the beginning of the movie where Mulan, the young Mulan, is running around the village chasing a chicken. And it's a fun thing. It was not a silly action sequence, but it's driving, fun. But when I first wrote that, probably it was 3.5 minutes long. The version that ended up in the film was probably half of that length. So, what am I going to do? Probably not edit the crap out of my original sequence, but hopefully review what I had and rearrange what I had into a cue that made sense at half the length, not just rely on a bunch of edits. So my main orchestral recording for the chicken chase was intentional and hitting all the right spots for what went into the film. But I had this other cue that I'd written, a year before that was twice the length, that maybe modulated and repeated thematically in a different key, which was all thrown out because I didn't need it in the final analysis. But I recorded that. I would have recorded the longer version of that just for the heck of it. So yeah, I recorded a bunch of music. It was great fun. That's a wonderful part of the process, as you know, and as I said earlier, that's one of the upsides of working on a film that's backed by such a huge studio that will allow me to have enough time with the recording to be able to experiment with things and record everything.
And Harry, you also wrote for a choir, if I'm not mistaken. Could you elaborate on your approach for choir this time? Did you also write for specific voices or certain lyrics?
No, I did have an idea to settle the choir writing 2 lyrics. Someone working with me at the time had unearthed the ancient poem of Mulan, which all these stories are based on, which obviously is thousands of years out of copyright. And we began to see if we could put a lot of the choir cues to put these lyrics in here from the ancient poem and have them sing in Mandarin. But it was decided that it wasn't really going to buy us anything. An American audience wasn't going to understand what the choir was singing on the whole, and a Chinese audience may. There was concern that they may hear and understand some of the words and be slightly distracted by them. So it was decided that we would have a lyricless, a wordless contribution from the choir, which was fine, which is how I originally started out. I use the choir in a way that I've often done before to support often melody lines.
Could you tell me a bit about the song which you will record?
Yeah, so a friend of mine introduced me to a chap called Jamie Hartman, who's a songwriter who lives here in LA. Now that he's an English guy as well. And this friend of mine said, look, you should meet Jamie. He should come over to your studio because you never know. You should play him your main theme for Mulan. you never know, he might be able to knock it into a song. So Jamie Hartman came over to my studio. I played him my Mulan theme and showed him various moments in the score. And I said, I'm not a songwriter, man. My music doesn't really conform to the song format. But I sat down at the piano and, I don't know, he made a little recording on his iPhone. I played him my theme, which is in 6/8, and he jumped up and down and said, "Look, listen, that's the verse. You've just played the verse. That's the verse. If I can find a chorus, then I think we've got a song." As far as I was concerned, I still had a lot of work to do on the score. And so this couldn't be top of my priority list. But we could co-write this. If he really felt he could make a verse out of my Mulan theme and then find a chorus, then we might be in business. But, I didn't promise him anything. I don't know. I certainly had no directive from the filmmakers that that's what they wanted me to do. But I didn't see any harm in it. So we cooked up a song, and I played it for Niki, and she really loved it. I played it for the president of music, Mitchell Liebert, at Disney, who also loved it. And it was decided that Christina Aguilera would be a good, since she has kind of a tie-in to this whole project, this property of Mulan, since that's what she sang the song Reflection in the original movie. And she got a stunning set of pipes on her. So it was put to her, and she agreed to do it. And she recorded that, and that's what goes on the end of the film. So Jamie and I were absolutely thrilled. Well, yeah, I think he's written dozens of songs that you'd probably know. I haven't, so maybe I was more thrilled than him. Surprised, let's say. But we were both stoked about it.
Harry, is there anything else on your mind regarding Mulan? Any story you would like to share with me and our audience?
Let me say this, and I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't seen the film yet, but there are some moments, let's say some Easter eggs, that are tucked away in the film. There's one particular moment I'm thinking of. No one's going to stand there and start singing, so this is not a musical. But there are a couple of places where I've quoted some melodies from the first movie that I think will make people smile if they have any feeling for the first movie, and there's a certain nostalgia out there. I know that people feel really connected to the original movie, but hopefully they'll notice a couple of moments will go by in the film, and it should cause a nice warm fuzzy feeling in them.
Harry, thank you very much for taking so much time out of your busy schedule. And you take care, and let's talk soon, okay?
Okay, thanks, Michael.
Bye.